losing my mind. Tell me if you really love me. Tell me if you really mind. Lately I've been on the grind. Lately I'm losing my mind. Tell me if you really love me.
What's up, guys? It's Zoom here, and on today's video, I'm giving you guys 5 tips on how to become a better Yu-Gi-Oh player. Now, these tips are really going to be simple tips you can implement every single day. It's not going to require you to use all of your spare time or anything like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys do like and enjoy content like this, please don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. So before we do the countdown, let's go ahead and give you guys one bonus tip. And here's a bonus tip. Take a bath or shower before going to an event. It's the best tip I can give you. You don't want to go to an event smelling. You obviously want to take care of yourself also. And you could take a 5-minute shower, man. Just shower before you come to an event. Players are going to appreciate that, and you yourself will appreciate that. So that's the bonus tip. But let's get into the other tips. Tip number 5. Read at least 10 cards a day. Now, there's a meme out there, Yu-Gi-Oh players don't know how to read, Yu-Gi-Oh players don't read cards, but you should definitely read as many cards as possible. Even just reading 10 cards a day will help you understand the game so much better. Just reading cards makes you better at the game. Say one week you pick a certain archetype, and you just want to read all the cards from that archetype and just understand what they do. That would be really, really good for you to understand how to play against certain decks and how to play against certain cards. For instance, you go to a regional or you're doing a remote duel and you run into a rogue deck. A lot of people won't know the rogue deck, but you might, because you took 10 cards a day and you read 10 different cards every day. And I definitely recommend using rogue decks as cards to read, because trust me, if you build your deck as a meta deck and you're only building your deck to fight the meta, you're going to run into that rogue player and lose because you weren't prepared. But if you're reading cards from rogue decks, you're definitely going to be prepared for that matchup, unlike other people that don't read cards. So that's it for tip number 5. Tip number 4. Play players that are better than you. If you have a guy at locals who's he's an OG, or he's just naturally really, really good at the game, he's top to YCSs or won regionals, or he's just really good, play against him as much as you can. Just ask, hey man, do you mind if we sit down and play a few sets? Or do you care if we play on DB later? Or something like that. Playing against players that are better than you makes you a better player by just doing that. It helps you understand their mindset and what they're wanting to do. And it helps you understand how players that are good like that player play just as well. Now, playing a good player can go to anything. Say you're playing video games. The way you improve in video games is playing players that are better than you. You can't expect to beat scrubs all day and get better. You just don't get better. You're not testing your skill. You're not attempting to get better whatsoever. So that logic goes to a lot of stuff. Always try and better yourself by playing people that are better than you. You got to have the mind and the heart to understand that that player is better than you. You can't be cocky and say, no, I'm not that good, blah, blah, blah. You just got to suck it up and play that player that is better than you and try and learn from that player. It would help a lot. Maybe one day you'll be that player. But that's it for tip number 4. Let's get into tip number 3. Our third tip is stop making excuses. Now, everybody loses sets here and there where you're just unlucky. It happens to everybody. It happens to pro players. Happens to you. Happens to me. It happens to everybody. There's always going to be a set here and there where you just lose because you had horrible luck and your opponent just had the craziest luck. But that's not every single time you lose. And I know so many players that every time they lose, they're just like, well, if I would have drawn this card, or well, if I didn't break. And it's every single time. Like, dang, man, you break every single game. Like, come on, bro. You got to stop making excuses. You got to understand why you're losing and understand the misplays you made and understand exactly what you could have done differently in those situations. For instance, when I'm playing and I know I made a misplay, sometimes I don't realize the misplay until 2 or 3 turns later. But then I analyze that misplay after that game or that set just to understand what I could have done better. I also record a lot of my gameplays, which is a good tip also. If you can record your matches, you can rewatch your matches and understand where you messed up and understand what you could have done better. Just don't make excuses. Making excuses does not make you better because you're not learning from the loss. NFL teams, NBA teams, any professional sports team, when they take a loss, they don't make excuses. What they do is they get their playbook and they watch a game film and they make a better game plan. And you can implement that exact same thing here in Yu-Gi-Oh! So stop making excuses, guys. But that's it for number 3. Let's go ahead and get into tip number 2. Tip number 2, learn the meta. What I mean by learn the meta is learn the best decks, the best side deck choices, and the best cards that are being played right now in this current format. For instance, right now it's December 2020. Our top decks right now are Virtual World, Eldritch Zodiac, Drytron, and Dinos. Those are the 4 decks that I am going to expect to see the most, whether I'm playing on DB or playing a remote duel or playing an LCS or something like that. Those are the decks I'm going to expect to see the most. So you need to learn those decks and how they play. What I recommend is taking a day on Dueling Book, or if you somehow own the cards, play a tournament with that deck just to understand how it works and what their game plan is. Also watch channels like the DB Grinder or something like that, where he shows you the meta matchups and he breaks down every single thing they're doing and what plays they're trying to make, because that can help you a lot. You're going into a matchup and say you're playing Dinos and you're about to play against Virtual World and you don't know what their cards do. What are you going to do? You're going to make your plays, but you're not going to know when to counter them. So you need to learn the meta to be successful as a Yu-Gi-Oh player. And learning the meta does not take long. Like I said, you just need to take a day and just take any meta deck you want and learn it. Read their cards, play with the deck, and understand how it works. Because understanding how it works is going to help you counter the deck. But that's it for tip number 2, guys. Now, let's go on to tip number 1. Now, before we get into tip number 1, I do want to say these tips are not organized in any importance or anything like that, just so you guys are aware. I just wanted to do a countdown. But yeah, all right, now we're on tip number 1. Tip number 1 would be learn how to bluff. Now, bluffing is in every major card game, including poker, stuff like that. Bluffing is what can set you apart from lower end players. So bluffing, for instance, would be whenever your opponent summons a monster that you could have a response to, even if you don't have any responses, getting your hand, siphoning through it, waiting like 1 second and telling them, yeah, you're good, or something like that, to make them second guess their plays. What a lot of pro players do, and what I've been doing lately, I just started implementing this, is laying my card all the way on the table, my whole hand on the table, waiting for them to summon a monster that is a important monster, and grabbing my hand and looking through it, pretending I have a response, for them to think, ooh, maybe he does have response. Or if I do have responses, I'll just lay my hand all the way down, let them keep going, and then I'll drop my Nibiru by picking my hand up or something like that. You can also legally ask your opponent how many cards they have in their, how many cards they have in their hand. You can ask that too, but how many monsters they have summoned. Even if you don't have a Nibiru, you're still legally allowed to ask them how many monsters they have special summoned this turn, or summon this turn. And it makes them second guess and try and play around Nibiru a lot of the time. Now you can't just tell your opponent, hey, I don't have hand traps, because that's illegal and you will get a game loss for that, maybe even a match loss, depending. But yeah, that's it for the tips, guys. I hope you guys liked and enjoyed the video. I will have more content like this coming out. My name is Zoom. Peace.